Be warned, if you are part of the GM development or design team, this video is not for you. Welcome back to another video. So I shared with you the 10 things I absolutely love about my 2017 GMC Canyon Denali. If you haven't seen that video, please make sure you click on the description below to check that out. Before we get into it, I want to share with you two things. The first one being my response to a lot of your comments. Those comments being, hey, maybe you should have bought a different truck. Hey, maybe you should have looked into a 1500 or an SLT or a different trim. And well, let me address that real quick. For those of you that have been following the channel for a little bit, know that I was in a pretty deep situation with the GMC 2500 that I had. In short, I was sold a rust bucket and the dealership agreed to buy it back. So in between the paperwork, shipping the truck back to the dealership, and getting my check in the mail from the buyback, I was in a 2-week time crunch to find my next vehicle. Although I could have realistically looked at every truck on the market, it wouldn't have been the financially prudent choice to make at the time. So my need, coupled with the time frame, plus my willingness to spend or not spend money, is really what led me to the GMC Canyon or the Chevy Colorado. I was initially leaning very heavy to the Chevy Colorado, but after test driving and seeing one in person, I was completely turned off. Especially because I was really only leaning to one trim, and that was the ZR2. At that time, about 9 or 10 months ago, every dealership in my immediate area had the ZR2s marked up like they were Ford Raptors. And the ones without a markup were not eligible for any rebates or discounts. So I decided there was going to be no way in hell I was going to pay $45,000 to $48,000 for a ZR2. And so the Canyon came into the picture. I found a dealership a couple towns over that had all their Canyons significantly marked down. I don't exactly remember their price points for every single trim, but I do remember that this GMC Canyon Denali was the best deal to be had at the moment. And just to give you a snapshot of what that meant at the time, this Canyon has every single option that GM offers. It's the Duramax, it's the 4x4, it has a trailering package, all the safety features, and I was able to snag this up for just a little over $38K out the door. Now I know that some of you have probably secured better deals than that, but again, in my area, this was definitely the deal to have. And for those of you wondering, well, Sigmab, you could have probably bought a very comparable Ram 1500. You know, the only thing I have to say to that is this. 1, I enjoy the company of women. 2, I like trucks that run. And 3, my dad's name is not Caitlin. So the second thing I want to share with you is the purpose behind the talking points of this video. By no means do I want to sound like I am not grateful or fortunate for being able to own and afford my truck. I'm not being bitchy, I'm not being pouty, I'm not being an ungrateful fuck. These are just things I want to share with you to give you a little bit of insight on what it's like to own one of these trucks. With that being said, allow me to share with you the 10 things I absolutely hate about my 2017 GMC Canyon Denali. So the first thing I hate about this truck is an option that can probably be found in any entry-level Honda Civic or entry-level Toyota Corolla, but for some reason it's missing from this GMC Canyon Denali, and that's power seats. Yes, it comes equipped with a 4-way power adjustable seat, but in terms of backward or forward, you still have to use this very fancy handle that GM has provided. The second thing I hate about this truck is that GM does not give you the option to order one of these trucks with a power sunroof. The third thing I hate about this truck is the lack of power rear window. Once again, GM has gone out of their way to remove some basic features found in a lot of trucks, and they've provided us with yet another fancy plastic handle. Look at that. The fourth thing I hate about this GMC Canyon is the lack of locking tailgate. That's right, boys. If you want to lock your tailgate, you have to do it the good old-fashioned way. Don't get me wrong, I know that this is an up-and-coming feature that a lot of manufacturers have recently started including in their trucks, but let me just remind you that this is a Denali. The fifth thing I hate about this truck is really to no one's fault. This is just my personal preference, but the shifter. I personally hate having the gear shifter here as part of the center stack center console. I would much rather have it embedded with the steering column back here, but again, that's just personal preference, but it's definitely something that irks me about this truck. Since we're inside, let me share with you the sixth thing I hate about this truck, and that's the mismatched interior. Let me show you. Here in the upper center console area, right where the navigation is at, GM opted for a really nice brushed aluminum finish. They also used it to trim the steering wheel. And this is a trim that I am actually a big fan of. However, in case you haven't noticed it, when you move further down the center console towards the gear shifter, they, for whatever reason, decided to use this really ugly wood grain trim. And then they also use it along the door panels. I would have just rather that they pick one, stick to it, and let that be the trim for the entire interior of the truck. The seventh thing I hate about this truck is the way GM runs their heating and air conditioning vents. This is also something that is not unique to the GMC Canyon or the Colorado. This is something that GM does in all their trucks, to include the 1500s and I believe the 2500s. They only place these directional vents in the front of the truck, and they completely neglect the back of the truck. Now, I can only imagine that air gets to the rear passengers by means of vents underneath the two front seats, but still, it's not the same as those directional vents available for your passengers to use. The eighth thing I hate about this truck is these tiny little mirrors. I'm not saying put those stupid Ram toy mirrors on this, but even something just a little bit bigger would help. They're not completely worthless, but you are going to spend more than several minutes trying to find that sweet spot. The ninth thing I absolutely hate about my GMC Canyon is probably one that a lot of you see coming, and that's all this chrome. It may have been cool at one point, but that's no more, at least in my opinion, and I definitely prefer blackout editions or body color matched parts. You know, chrome is kind of like pagers and fanny packs and perms and Hillary Clinton and Cisco and wiener dogs. Nobody cares anymore. But again, that could just be my exaggeration. And finally, the 10th thing I absolutely hate about my 2017 GMC Canyon, be warned, this is the controversial one, is that my truck is not worthy of the Denali name and branding. Yes, it has some great luxury features, but the trade-off is that it's missing a lot of basic features found in common cars. Not to mention that when you compare the Canyon Denali to, say, a Sierra Denali or an Acadia Denali or anything else that bears a Denali name, it'll be very quick and very obvious that this falls very short of that name. I would have much rather that GM call this a Canyon SLT with a luxury package or some kind of Canyon SLT with advanced features, instead of luring dumb guys like me who think they're going to get a Denali and really just get an SLT with Denali name and branding. Not cool, GM. So you're hearing it from me, a buyer and owner. This is a fake Denali. And I gotta be honest, I had to limit myself to 10 things. There is so many little things missing from this truck that I could honestly keep going. Which leads me to say that I'll probably make a part 2 of the things that I hate about my GMC Canyon Denali. Balls in your court, GM. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helps some of you on the fence determine whether or not this is a purchase you want to make. Remember to like and share this video. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so, and I'll catch you guys next time.